Welcome back, everyone. It is Vordy here. I'm bringing you back here another video on Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, and today's video is an introduction to like a new series. It's going to be called Legacy. Essentially, what the series is going to be about is we're going to take a character, and then we're going to talk about him, and we're going to talk about him from if they've existed prior to Final Fantasy Brave Exvius and how they've made their way up to Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, and a little bit about them. Okay. So the most important thing is a lot of these characters carry these very interesting moves and stuff as they kind of go through all the series. They become better or evolve and stuff, and we'll kind of talk about that. And then we're gonna talk about how useful they are in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius and what their new role or their job or whatever is during during the Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. And when they've come there, so what do they do? Okay, essentially that's how that's going to be. So that's the introduction of the Legacy series. So the way the first episode is going to work is I'm just going to talk about a little bit of history of Final Fantasy. It's going to be like the short version. Essentially, I'm just going to go and highlight some things that I think that are really important to myself, and I think that would be interesting for you guys to kind of know. And maybe this will kind of set up the base for the Legacy series where you kind of understand how I'm approaching it. So this will be like the introduction video that if you want to make reference to that when I'm talking about it, like especially the system like jobs and stuff like that. So first and foremost, what we're going to talk about is obviously the creator. The creator's name is Hironobu Saguchi. He was the guy who created Final Fantasy. He created it back in 1987, so it's been around for a very, very long time. Final Fantasy is published and is owned by, which is like the developers, is the Square Enix score. So I mean, like known as Square or whatever, or Square Enix, whatever people call it nowadays. So they're the ones who own Final Fantasy. It's one of their very most popular franchises out there. So the other thing that's really cool about Final Fantasies is that it's not limited to like a single platform, like how other things that Nintendo like owns, it's like Mario and stuff like that. They've been limiting it to like one platform till recently. Right now they have like Mario Run or whatever it is for phones, but Final Fantasy is everywhere. Androids, they're in arcade, they're for phones and Game Boys and Game Cubes and play all forms of PlayStation and Xbox and on the PC or computer platforms as well. So the thing that's interesting about it is it did originate like when it was published the first time. It did originate on Nintendo, so its first like day one debut was on Nintendo. So it has a little bit of history with Nintendo. So it did break away from Nintendo and went out and went to everybody, which I think is the reason that it has such strong franchise success, is because they broke away from that niche. Just like I think that Nintendo's games like Mario and Pokemon and those ones that they own, if they spread their wings and just went to multiple platforms, they would be doing so much better. But anyways, this is about Final Fantasy. So the other thing about Final Fantasy is because Final Fantasy is such a strong core. It has such strong mechanics and stories about it that its RPG system has had many spin-offs, and some of the more notable ones and the ones that I kind of familiar with is like Kingdom Hearts and the Mana series. Those are really the only two I'm kind of aware of, and those are the ones I'm going to use as my examples. So they've kind of used those as spin-offs for them. Okay, Final Fantasy has been around for a long time, and it has it's had in-game changes that some people like, some didn't like, but the most notable thing that people like about Final Fantasy are their cinematics. Like it's like the CGI, the anime kind of approach to it. At the start you always have like some sort of cinematic effect, or when you're switching chapters it has like this crazy cinematic effect where maybe it's like a minute, 2 minutes long, where it kind of sets you up for your story, and it kind of gives you this visual awe when you're playing the game, which is really, really cool. And I mean, like, not a lot of games were doing that back in the day, so like when they started doing it, it took off. The other thing, because I only put two names up there, I put the creator's name and then I put the guy's name who created the system that I absolutely love. So the other dude here that I have is Hiroyuki Ito. He is the creator of the job system in Final Fantasy. Originally, I believe it was introduced in like Final Fantasy 3 or 4. We have the ability to have like jobs and stuff like that, or like you have a character and you acquire him and he's like a white mage or like a red mage or something. But he's the dude who created the system. He's actually created a bunch of other systems. The other system that is also fairly notable is in Final Fantasy VIII, there's a system called the junction system. He's also the creator of that. The junction systems works where like you have like how we have espers in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, you have them there as well as summons, and then you can like level them up, and the magic they have you have and stuff like that. So it's kind of similar to how they work in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, but you can abuse that system in Final Fantasy VIII, pretty crazy, where you become unbeatable because of how the system is designed. But anyway, so he's created those cool systems that kind of changed the game. The job system specifically is the one that I absolutely love, and the reason that Final Fantasy stands out to me, and it became something very big when Final Fantasy 11 came out, more so than the previous games, though they were introduced way before that. So the way the Final Fantasy 11 online worked is that you could pick any character you wanted, and you could pick your starting class or your starting job, as they called it. So you wanted to be like, we'll just use like Tartarus as an example. Tartarus are these really, really little, very specific little dudes that are designed for mostly like magic stuff. They're very good with magic. And then you have Galkas, which are really, really big, and they're mostly designed for like tanking and like damage. They're very poor with magic. So for example, when I was started playing, I picked Tartaru because they were, good in magic. I wanted to be a white mage, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I will go with there. And then after a while of playing, I realized, you know what? Like, I want to do some other things. So I wanted to be like a warrior. So I'm like, you know what? I guess I have to remake a character. But the thing is, in Final Fantasy 11, you didn't have to remake your character. You keep your character, you keep your progress and everything. You go to your little muggle room, you speak to your muggle, and he will change your job for you. So now whatever your character is, he's now becomes a warrior. And you don't lose your progress from your other characters. It keeps all your progress. So that's kind of how they changed that job system, being like, you have it at one character. Now you can change it to like one character, but can have many jobs, and they can be anything. And we see that more in like Final Fantasy Realm Reborn, where you just kind of put on a staff, now you're a mage. Put on a bow, boom, you're an archer. And then as you specialize, you get different things where you become like, you're wearing a sword, you're a warrior, and bam, all of a sudden you're now a paladin because you have like a sword and a shield, and you met these requirements. So the reason that is really important for us when we're talking about Final Fantasy Brave Exvius is because in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, characters are introduced to you, and they have a job. Like, what is their job? Like, for example, we'll use Noctis as an example. Noctis's job is prince. And most people are a little bit confused about it, but it's not just because he is a prince. He also holds this line, like a bloodline inside him that makes him a prince. The reason he has the abilities he has is because of his prince bloodline, the royal blood he has. That's why he has those abilities. I don't want to give any spoilers or anything if people haven't watched Kingslave, but he has those abilities because of his bloodline. So therefore, it makes the most sense that his job is prince. He's not a warrior. He's not a mage. He's not like an adventurer, or anything. It's specifically to what makes him special. So those are the kind of things that are really, really cool. Like, and you have other things like, like we have many different examples like Cecil or Dark Knight Cecil, where he became a Dark Knight. So now he is a Dark Knight. His job is Dark Knight because all of his magic is based off of dark magic, like what a Dark Knight would have. And another example would be, again, in Final Fantasy 11, you have these different jobs that you can unlock, and Dark Knight is one of them. And there's so many different jobs you can kind of unlock in that game that you have access to for your characters, and you switch it. Now you all of a sudden can harm yourself by casting magic on yourself to produce more damage to do it. So at the cost of your life, you deal damage as well. So it's a similar system. With the job system integrated, that's kind of what I'm setting up, because that way I can refer to the job system and be like, hey, you know what, this is what this guy's job is. And in this video, you can kind of relate to kind of find out where the history of the jobs are. So the other thing here, as far as the job system goes for us, that helps us understand what the roles are for our characters. Like, you'll have different kinds of roles. Obviously, there are some character jobs that are kind of like more open, like an adventurer job. An adventurer job mean like they're everything, kind of like they don't really have anything specific. And some jobs explain something like lightning. I think hers is like Isol. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's like a curse that's given to her, where they're kind of put this thing on them, and they become labeled that, even though like some of her abilities might not be tied to it, but she does get those abilities based on the title that she gets. So that's kind of how I'm going to set that up, so you understand that's how jobs work, and how I'm going to be using them in my legacy series when I'm explaining and talking about characters. This is a chance that you can relate back to see who the creator is for the job system. You can look him up on your own to kind of find out what he's done, what else they've done for it. For as far as the rest of the history for Final Fantasy, they've slowly picked up. They used to be just on like the smaller platforms for like Nintendo and Xbox, and it was like kind of like top-down view, and you moved into more like the 3D when it came into like Final Fantasy 7, and then Final Fantasy 8 when it was like fully 3D, and Final Fantasy 9 when you had Zidane, and then when you go into Final Fantasy 10 with Titus, and then it goes into 10-2 when you have like a system that was kind of changed. That's the first time you kind of see this system where you equip the weapon, and then you become like that role, or you wear certain clothing and you become that, right? With like the 10 and 10-2. And then you have like Final Fantasy 12, 13, 14, and then now with 15. So we're currently in 15. The 15 Final Fantasy is the one with Noctis. It is the one where you're playing the as the prince, and then you're trying to figure out what's going on. Like again, I'm trying not to give any spoilers as far as the games, because especially Final Fantasy 15, because that game is still fairly new, and some people might not have beat it yet. So I'm not gonna say anything yet. But when I do my unit review, if I feel like there's something that's gonna spoil, like let's say like the game is new, like for Noctis, I'm gonna give you a warning in advance, let you know, hey, by the way, you know what, there might be a spoiler here, so just be careful. If you plan on playing the game in the future, then maybe you want to avoid it. But again, as far as the characters go, I'm gonna try and base them off of their core mechanics, how they work, and their history, like how they've got to the point they are. Like Noctis might be a bad example to use, but let's say if we used like a warrior, or like Cecil. Cecil's done a few different things. He's been in like a few different games, so that way you can kind of advance him. But even more so is like some other characters. Like I might even do some side characters, like what is his face? Like maybe like a style of character, like for like the adventurer, like because the adventurer appears a lot throughout all the games. Same thing with like red mages or black mages. Maybe we'll make like a legacy series, or like a legacy episode of like what is a black mage, like how do black mages work, like where do they originate, like red mages, what do they originate, what do they do, what are they like, what are red mages good for. That way that it gives you an idea, so you understand how those things work as well. Okay, so again, trying to keep it as short as possible. I'm not making a movie this time. It's going to be like a more like a quick video. So that is my video to kind of introduce my legacy series, and that's something that's going to be coming very, very soon. More than likely, I think the first character I might pick to do is probably going to be Noctis, or one of the more popular characters that just recently came out, and then start it off like that. And then if you're watching the videos, even if you watch this one, if you have an idea, you're like, you know what, can we do this character? As long as they're in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, I will be more than happy to do the research and make a legacy episode on that character. Okay, so thank you so much for sticking around. Hopefully you enjoyed this little short history. I know it's not like the whole history of the game. Like if you want to look that up, you can look that up. It's been around for a long time, so there's a lot to talk about, and I don't want to drag this on, even though I am right now, but I don't want to drag it on too much. But yeah, so please, if there's any requests, put them down below. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, and stick around for future content. This is Vorty, and I'm out. Peace.